Hi everybody, Dan Vendrups here again from the Graduate Research School, Research Education and Development Team, La Trobe University. This is the second part of the Introduction to Graduate Research Supervision for external supervisors. And in this section we're talking about expectations, the university's expectations, candidates' expectations and supervisor expectations. So I've got a PowerPoint to share with you and I'll do that now. And here we go. So just to recap, our purpose now is to talk a little bit about what the university expects of supervisors, what candidates tend to expect, and this is a set of items that are based on about 30 years worth of research in the field. What supervisors expect, this is based on the reflections and comments of supervisors, particularly others who've been involved in this piece of training. We also offer this to supervisors internal to La Trobe as well, and so we'll hear some of their ideas reflected there. To finish with, we've got another exercise, this time asking you to reflect on your own expectations in supervision. So here we go. To start with the university, there's an expectation that supervisors are going to be research active. Now, what these words mean could be different depending on your field. Different fields of research have different ideas about what constitutes a high level of research activity versus an appropriate level of research activity. For our purposes, there's a few things we can point to describe what we mean by research active. One is, of course, that supervisors are actively conducting their own research and publishing in their fields of expertise. These are good markers of activity. It may also be reflected in the contributions that supervisors are making to other academic activities, such as conferences, being involved in editing work, working for journals, etc. There's a lot of things that we can be doing that indicate our activity. Supervisors need to be listed on the Supervision Register. Now, if you haven't heard about this yet, please go ahead and visit the Grow Supervision resource that will point to you to in some of our other materials. The Supervision Register is just our university's way of keeping track of who's involved in supervision and also keeping a record of what sorts of supervision people can be qualified to do. If you're external to the university, chances are that the sort of supervision you'll be registered to do will be co-supervision as an external supervisor. Another expectation of the university is that supervisors are always the primary source of advice or truth on theoretical and methodological decisions that candidates are making in their research. Now, we all have candidates who have fantastic ideas and people who come from time to time saying, oh, I wonder if we could just do X, Y, or Z, this would be an amazing project. And that's true, but unless the supervisors also have expertise in X, Y, or Z, then we can end up in a bit of a problem. It's really important that supervisors are able to provide all of the guidance that candidates need for the conduct of the research that they're pursuing. Otherwise, we could end up in really difficult situations. If suitable methodological expertise isn't available in the supervision team, for example, well, there could be a need there to approach another supervisor to come on board to provide that expertise as well. So there's ways we can boost the expertise of the supervision team, but it's certainly something that needs to be thought about. And finally, it's really important for supervisors to be active in their supervision, to be responsible for the conduct of the project, to think and care about the conduct, the design, the outcomes of the project. This is how we get really great work being done in a really timely manner by people who are really engaged and have a great experience of La Trobe. What we try to move away from is the idea of a supervisor as a distant, disinterested person who really doesn't take that kind of direct role in the work. Yep, you're part of a team together, supervisors and candidate, and we want to see that reflected from the university's perspective. When it comes to the expectations of research candidates, as I said, there's a number of points that have been fairly consistent since this sort of thing started being researched in the mid-80s. The responses come back time and again being very similar, and these are the sorts of things that we hear from our candidates. As mentioned in the previous slide, Candidates want supervisors who are going to be active, who will actively supervise them, who will read their work and not just dismiss it. So, oh, yeah, I'm sure it's probably good. I haven't got time to read it now. No, they want that feedback. They want supervisors to be available when needed, but within reason. But there's a negotiation that needs to happen there, and clarity around expectations. Yeah? If you've got a candidate who you think is asking too much of you, you need to tell them. Likewise, if you've got a candidate who's not seeking your input enough, again, have that conversation. Talk to them about it. They want supervisors who are friendly, open, supportive, critical, but constructive, and obviously who have a good knowledge of their subject. There's a few other things as well that are worth mentioning because they're a little bit more complicated. It comes through that candidates also expect supervisors to structure interactions to facilitate the exchange of ideas. They want a rich intellectual environment. They want supervisors to listen to what candidates are trying to say and to respond and not just sort of block them out or tell them straight up that their ideas aren't really worth talking about or anything like that. They want supervisors to have the courtesy not to answer the phone or check email during meetings. So make sure meetings really are time that is set aside to focus on the project. Take an interest in the candidate, put information in their path, and help them. They expect at some level some help with the question of what happens next. Yeah? When I finish this work, what do I do? Where do I go? Be ready for that conversation. Yeah? Be ready to think about, from your own perspective, what you are and are not able and willing to do on that front. When it comes to other supervisors, it's worth noting that for many of us, graduate research is actually a necessary part of our research environments. Yeah? It's normal for there to be graduate researchers, postdocs, other academics and researchers through to senior professors, all pulling together on a particular project. So that's the reality for quite a lot of people, not necessarily everyone, but it's there. On the other hand, sometimes supervisors look at supervision as a kind of work that might be preferred over other kinds of academic work. It's the sort of thing that can help, particularly when we get completions coming through, that can help enhance the prestige of our programs, of our research departments, and of course of us as individuals. So there's a lot of benefits for supervisors being involved in successful projects there. And for many supervisors, there's other parts of this that they also articulate as being important. The opportunity to pass on knowledge to others, to develop other people, to be the mentor for others and help them with their career advancement and, by the same token, their own career advancement. It's a way of being involved in research that's new or interesting or that might take you away from what you normally do. Working with really interesting people who are bright and interested and energetic and really want to be there. For many, it's a way of staying up to date with the field. Who of us has time to read absolutely everything that comes out every year? I certainly don't, and I don't know very many people who do. So some of that information we get through our engagement with our students who are right at the coalface and finding things often that we might not find ourselves. So there's lots of really great reasons to be involved in this and lots of things that supervisors expect. I could go on. There's probably many more things we could mention, but these are some of the ones that come to mind. Within all of this, there's some key considerations that are just worth talking about. All of these things work, and they work well when communication is clear. Communication is the thing that we keep coming back to, and often when something's gone wrong in supervision, it's usually because the communication in the first place has somehow or other broken down. Someone finds that they can't say something to someone else, or something has been said that has caused a problem. This is very common. It's really important, though, that in that communication that expectations are also clear. So expectations of what the project's going to achieve, for starters, making sure that people have a consensus around that, because it could very well be the case that you have a certain set of expectations, candidate has a completely different set of expectations. And if you don't talk about it, you'll never know until it becomes a problem. Also, really clear expectations of each other. Yeah, what's your role? What's their role? What are the other supervisors doing? Is there anyone else involved in the project who might have a role? Yeah, we need to talk about these things. It's really important for the project design to be realistic. I mean, research can encapsulate all sorts of different things. But in this context, in the context of PhD research, we're working to a very particular time frame. So the projects that we're pursuing have to be able to fit within that time frame. And if we're asking our candidates to do too much, it could become a problem. Sometimes candidates also think that their PhD is going to be the absolute apex of their research career, whereas for many of us, it's actually the beginning. So, candidates' ideas about what their PhD is going to be can also be a bit unrealistic at times. It's important that supervision meetings are regular, that they happen in a way that it's clear that they are in fact meetings. And it's a really good idea to agree on objectives for these meetings. Yeah, what are we here to talk about? What is it that we want to achieve? Between now and the next meeting, what's going to happen? Who's going to minute these things? Who's going to report on them? Yeah, these things are worth talking about. So talk openly about these expectations and make sure along the way that there's opportunities to review and revise the tasks and responsibilities that apply. I'll take this opportunity now just to introduce you to the second exercise, which is about expectations. Now, you should have been handed a single A4 sheet that's got an exercise on it. It's a role perception scale that was developed in the mid-80s, actually, quite a long time ago, and which we've adapted a little bit to suit our purposes here, because a few things have changed since then. So I guess take an opportunity to look at the questions on that form, mark out where you think, in your view, your practice sits, and then turn to the person next to you and discuss. Where do you agree or disagree? Anything on that form where you have quite divergent opinions? And if that's the case, why? What do you think that relates to? Obviously, the list is not exhaustive. There's plenty of other things that could go there. So can you think of a few other points that might be included? Maybe something that's more important than what's on that list. Have a talk about these things and then return to the wider group to discuss and compare your observations.